Welcome to 906 Outdoors. Today we'll take a look at fall tree transplanting. But first, ginseng farming.
Drove about 600-700 miles down to Lower Michigan and back, and by the time I got back I was a ginseng farmer.
9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. Ginseng has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for centuries. It's one of the most popular herbal remedies with a multitude of potential health benefits. I met up with the Lordsons at their ginseng farm in Perkins to find out what it takes to be a ginseng farmer.
And these are the berries we picked in the ginseng patch. And generally just two seeds in each berry, and that's what the seeds will look like. And then we depulp them with stomping with our feet and rubber boots on this slab over here until we get all the pulp out of them. Float them out. We put them in screened in sand boxes for a year. Bury all the boxes. They're 1/8" screens that use clean washed sand. And then we'll put nail a screen on top of them and bury them in the sand for a year, and we'll pull them out next fall and float them, and that's what we'll be planting with next fall. This is our drop planter here. We plant at about 120 pounds to the acre. And it all depends how fast you go with the machine and how many pounds you put out per acre with that machine. It'll plant 12 foot at a time. We start off when we harvest the berries, and you bury them for 1 year, and we plant them the next fall. And then it's going to be a process of 3 more years to harvest them as 3-year-olds. But it actually takes a 4-year process before you're ready to harvest. There's about 1.25 acres here. We have a bed plow that makes these raised beds because you want the water to shed away from ginseng. They don't like to be wet. We put about 3 inches of straw mulch on them and box it in, and they should be up next spring. And then we'll put the roof on it first thing in the spring before they come up so they don't freeze. We just planted this crop here about 2 weeks ago, and we won't put a roof on them until next spring. And we'll put 12-foot riders on top of this, cedar poles, and then we'll set them panels up on top of that, wired down. And then in the fall time, we'll have to stack them up for the snow load, 3 high, over top of the posts. And then in the springtime, we'll have to set them all back down and rewire them. And they'll stay like you do that every year. And if the roofs are still good yet, they'll be going on a new garden. The roof panels will last about 12 years. These are 1-year-olds, and they're starting to turn in for the year. They start to yellow up and turn their colors just like the maple leaves do. So it won't be too long, and we'll be stacking these roofs up for the winter, and then their tops will freeze out, and they'll go dormant till spring. And they'll have another bulb on them that'll come up in the spring. This is a 2-year-old garden. They will be harvested next year, and these are our 3-year-olds here, which will be harvested this fall. These are 3-year-old ginseng roots. Sometimes they're hard to dig out. This is a pretty good size root here. They grow in all shapes. And it'll have usually a bulb on it for the next year's. They'll have a top on it for next year already. And you can see there is some berries on them, which we might pick a few of them, but it's very labor intensive too, because we hire people to come pick the weeds all summer because it's all hand weeded. And the dandelions are hard to pull out too, and sometimes you don't get the root. We put these wood roofs on for shade. Ginseng likes about 25% sunlight, also to keep the frost out in the spring. And then we'll roll them up to give the patch air. We do have to spray these about every 10 days with fungicides. The ginseng's very susceptible to different diseases. If you don't spray the fungicides, you ain't gonna have no crop. We used to have a lot of problems with deer, and so we started just fencing in everything. And as we spray, I got to take all these fences down and roll them up each time. And they'll come in here and stomp everything, and they'll eat the plants, bed down in here, bring their fawns in, and it's tough to keep the deer out. You have to fence it in. Here shortly, we'll have to take down the whole roof and push all the mulch off, and we dig them with potato diggers. And we'll pick all the roots up in buckets and put them on a wagon, and from there we wash and dry them. A lot of labor involved.
906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours.
This is what we use to take the mulch and the tops, all the ginseng tops off of the beds and the straw down to the dirt before we bring the potato diggers in. We push it out with this and hopefully not push any roots out with it.
I got a son that decided one day when he was riding with me we were going to get in the ginseng business. We drove about 600-700 miles down to Lower Michigan and back, and by the time I got back I was a ginseng farmer. I was purchased a hell of a bunch of ginseng seed. Knew nothing about it, but now we're in the ginseng business.
We're digging the ginseng here. We've got to keeping the roots out of the ditches so we don't lose them in the ditch. And the crew is picking them up with the buckets and loading them on the wagons.
Yeah, when we first started, we knew nothing about it, and we bought enough for a quarter acre of seed for a quarter acre to plant. And then we didn't really figure out the quarter acre right, so we planted way too much seed per acre. So we ended up with long, skinny roots that was they bought them, but we didn't get the price that we wanted for them. But that's how we got started. And then we had to dig them by hand with the pitchforks, and then we had to wash them in a bathtub by hand, and then put them in our garages and dry them, which we didn't know nothing about, but we made it work. And we've been learning ever since. But the guy that we bought out in Marquette, Ted Balzerini, we bought all his equipment out and he helped us get going. And another friend of ours that we accumulated from down at Marathon City down there, Laverne Ferger, he was a really lot of help to us. Helped us get started, helped us in a lot of ways. He drove up here one time all the way from Marathon City up here in the morning and told us what was wrong with our roots and turned around and drove back home. That's what kind of a friend he was. He just knew just by looking. He didn't even go in our patch. He just looked over the edge and told us that we had pythium and what the chemicals to use in combination to cure it, and took off in the truck and away he went back home again. But he sure helped us a lot, man, that guy, wow. But we've planted a lot of ginseng. We started out with a post hole digger. It was the worst thing that we ever got in our life. And for digging holes behind the tractor, and sometimes you hit a rock and it would throw Joe for 10 damn feet through the air and pretty near kill him. But we get up, we kept planting posts. You have to, every 12 square feet you have to plant a post. Driving, now we have a driver that with Joe and I, we drove as high as 150 posts per hour. In 1 hour, we'll drive 150 posts. He's that good at it and that fast. To learn to know the soil before you get into ginseng. If you don't know the soil, you best just stay away from it, because if you don't have a sandy loam and the right slope, it won't grow. You can't make it grow. You have to know the right chemicals. Ginseng is a very touchy, very touchy. We start early in the morning, we work till late in the evening every day, 7 days a week in the summertime. In the wintertime we think it's hours, but it's not so. There's always, you have to make roof sections, or now we have a bandsaw mill that we saw all our 1x3s with. Labor intense, very, and tractor and machinery intense. We have tractors that we use 1 day a year, you know. We have 5 Farmall B tractors. 2 of them we keep for parts, and 3 of them we use. And then we have a Ford Industrial tractor that we use for making the beds with, and then we have 2 of these whites for digging, and then we have a Ford with a high-speed, low-speed transmission in it for doing the heavy work. And then we have a skidder that we use for loading the riders and the pulps and stuff and moving them around. It's just non-stop to buying equipment. If you want to work steady 7 days a week, get in the ginseng business. If you don't, if you want some time for yourself, don't get in there. We used to own a hunting property at the eastern end of the UP, but we had to sell out because with the last 3 years we owned it, we never seen it. We had over 220 acres up there, never seen the hunting cabin. Nice cabin with sauna and everything on it. We built ginseng instead, but you couldn't go hunting until you got done with the ginseng, which was about 2 or 3 days left of deer season. By then, you're in the ginseng business. Not good.
906 Outdoors is brought to you by Race Driven, your source for premier power sports products.
When we're washing, we just shovel them in the one end and that washer takes care of them then from then on. As they tumble down through, they're washed and come out in the tub and then run up the elevator and try and pick the bad ones out, you know. Just some of them roots have way too much rust on them and they're hard to sell. You can take them and sell them separately for like $5-6 a pound, you know, but these ones here we're hoping to pull 30 out of, so it's a big difference, you know. We got to know what we're doing down here or we're going to be in trouble when we take them to market, you know. They have to be just a little dirt on them. They don't want them too clean. And normally we have a buyer from California that comes and gets our roots every year. We're fortunate that way. Very seldom have to worry about selling them. They're only ginseng farmers that there is up here. Now they've got so much disease in Canada that they're getting the hell out of there. They can't grow roots in Canada anymore, and they don't have the quality that our roots in Michigan and Wisconsin does. Wisconsin and Michigan is noted, especially Wisconsin. You go ask any Chinaman any place and they'll tell you the ginseng capital of the world is Wausau, Wisconsin, Marathon City. We go down and we tell them our roots is way better than yours, and we give them a lot of crap about it, but they'll buy Michigan roots faster than they will Wisconsin roots. It used to be that they wanted the biggest roots that they could get their hands on, but now they want the smaller roots now. The little tiny ones, that's what they want. They go from one to the other. That whole country down there just grows roots unreal. The limestone is real close to the top of the soil up there, and that ginseng just loves it. Just loves it. Well, that's what back at the next farm we're digging back there, there's lime in that ground, a lot of lime in that ground, and stone close. So we get a better product back in the next fields than we do out of these. Way better product, bigger roots, you know. When they're washing, they come off the elevator into the pickup trucks and then take the pickup trucks up to the garage, the drying garage, and they're all put on racks in there, so many buckets to a rack. And then from there, when they get dry, when it takes normally around 9 days, it'll end up around close to 100 degrees in that garage, and with the right fans, and Joe has got that down to the most. I mean, he's the best at the dries. We always have perfect dries, and they'll take one of them roots and snap it, and you can see by the rings and the green or whatever's in there that they know how good that dry is. And if it's not a good dry, they really don't want them, you know. They're going to pay you less money. But he knows exactly what he's doing with that furnace up there, how to adjust it. The intake and the outtake, you know, you have to set them both together.
This is our drying process, and we start off with 100% outside air with our furnace. And once we get to 50% humidity, we'll switch to half inside and half outside air. You got to try to get rid of most of the humidity as soon as you can to get a good dry on these roots, because it means quite a bit when you go to bring them to market on the dry. We also have an exhaust fan that blows steady, just pushing the air out as fast as we can push it in. These bigger fans in the ends, and then we'll put the square fans, we'll wire square fans on each side. You get as much air moving as you can. It takes about 10 to 12 days to dry these roots in here. It all depends how big our harvest is, but we'll go, you know, probably 8, 10 racks high, 7, 8 racks high in here. But the more you get in here, the harder it is to get rid of the humidity. You lose 2/3 of the weight from green to dry. And each rack in here will end up being about around 90 pounds of dried ginseng. We're grading them out to try to get, some of them have what they call rusty root on them, a little bit of rot. So we're grading them all out, trying to get our product to look better. And these will be sellable also. They use them for grinding up and putting it in capsules and whatnot. So everything is used, all the roots are used. Once it's harvested and dried and certified by the state of Michigan, then we bring it down to the Wausau area where there's 2 or 3 different brokers that will sell it for us. Years ago, we'd go down in that area and there'd be buyers all over the place, and we just drive around and sell that way. But now it's just, we're dealing with brokers. Some years our ginseng stays in the United States. For the last 2 or 3 years, it's went to California. And I think from there, in the Chinatown there, there's people that come there and buy small packages and actually bring it back to China. I got interested in ginseng. I used to read Fur Fish Game magazine when I was a teenager. I read every issue, but liked to trap and hunt. And ginseng was always in there. So one time, heading up to Marquette, there was a ginseng patch in Sands there. And one day I stopped in and talked to a gentleman named Ted Balzerini, and he got me started in ginseng. Me and my dad. And so we bought a few pounds of seed from him and started planting a small patch, and that was 36 years ago. And from there we kept planting and worked construction, and after about 5, 6 years, I started going full-time ginseng. My dad was starting to slow down, and I needed more help here in the springtime, getting all the roofs on, and then planting and harvesting is a lot of work. My brother joined us here 7, 8 years ago. We're both ginseng farmers, I guess, and he still works construction.
I work masonry construction with Gunlock Champion, and then the spring and the fall, we take a layoff and we keep a couple months here to keep stuff going on the farm and get our berries picked and roots harvested. And China grows their own ginseng over there, but the quality of the ginseng over here in America is way better than what they can grow. So that's basically why they prefer our ginseng. And when we sell it, it gets shipped over to China, and they'll package it into small packages and one root at a time. And
it's been tough through the years, up and down crops, but we're still here farming.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works, home of Michigan's largest custom knife factory showroom. If you've been thinking about transplanting some trees into your yard, fall is the perfect time. Here's Sean Cannon with some tips.
Landowners looking to take care of their fruiting trees before winter falls, you should always put down your tree guard, your tree wrap on your base of your tree to keep the shrews and the mice and the rabbits, and especially this time of year with rutting activity, the bucks, they always tend to find your apple trees or crab apple trees or oak trees that planted in your yard. You'll want to get those tree wraps around them. It's always a good thing too to make sure you get your fencing up, and you want to have sturdy fencing with adequate poles that are going to hold up that fence during the winter with the high snow amounts that we'll get. And you want to get back within at least a hand reach, maybe anywhere from 4 to 6 feet for that snow load, so it doesn't encroach on your tree. You can prune in the fall. In a tree like this size, when you go on every other branch, especially these interior branches, you want to prune these back. And don't go too far into the tree when you're pruning, either in the fall or the spring. Around the edge of this stem, come back and prune it. You don't want to get into the tree. You don't want to hit the cambium layer, because that can wound the tree if you get too close to the main stem of the tree. And that should take care of your fruiting trees for the winter. Fall time is a good time of the year to do your tree transplant. And when you're trying to transplant a tree from one area to the next, If you're within an area where you're just going to transplant the tree within a 1/4 mile and you have adequate soils, the same soils where you transplanted a tree, you don't need to use a whole lot of fertilizer when you're going to transplant it to another hole. It is good to use some fertilizer, but when you're digging up the tree, you want to go to the outer edge, what you call the drip edge of the tree. And for a tree this size, go down about 1 foot. And you don't want to go right next to the stem of the tree. You want to get out to that edge of that drip edge. You want to go straight down about 1 foot, and then you can angle it down. And once you get that tree out, you have the fine root hairs extending out of that tree. You can nip a few of those. And when you bring that tree in that soil pod back to the hole you're going to plant it in, you always want to firmly push down your heel all the way around that tree so there's no air pockets in there. You get any air pockets in there, that tree is more than likely going to die. Same with a tree this size, a white pine. It's a taller tree. I would give it a little bit more room on the outside of the drip edge. I'd come back probably another 6 inches. And I would go at least 2 feet on this and then angle down. So you're going to have a large dirt ball on the bottom of this tree when you're transplanting it. I don't typically like to transplant trees any larger than this just because of the growth of that tree and the shock of it. Being that age compared to a younger seedling tree, their survival rate is better with the smaller ones than the taller trees. Not to say that this tree wouldn't survive being transplanted. If you did transplant this tree, I would put some rope, keep it stabilized, and then put some fertilizer around it too with a tree with this size compared to a seedling.
Feel free to join us on Facebook or visit us at 906outdoors.com. Thanks for watching, and we invite you to join us next week for another adventure right here on 906 Outdoors.